Hi, my name is Natalie, and I'm a part of Group 7, and we were assigned to study and present on how TV and computers impact child development. And my section for this project was the positive and negative consequences of technology for children. So some of the positive effects of technology for children is that they are stimulated by the technology, which can improve their problem solving and learning skills. And according to the American Cornell University Tomo Kane study, the IQs of the current generation are higher than those of previous generations due to an increase in technology. Today's generations are just born into this electronic world, whereas those who came before us were they had to adapt to it. They weren't born into the technology the way we are now. And another positive effect is that the accessibility to technology enhances child safety, which is not always the case, but having phones or emergency um, response available can really help with child safety. Other positive effects include better decision-making skills, better visual spatial development, and technology can also help children improve their multitasking skills. And it's also a really great tool to use in the classroom. It is also something that's really encouraging for children to develop their skills and pursue leadership and technology fields for their future careers. However, some negative effects of technology on children are that in excess technology can cause distraction, inattentiveness, and struggles with concentration. This can negatively impact academic learning. Technology can also lead to disconnection and fewer in-person social interactions because children get so caught up in their video games, their TV, or whatever, that they stop playing with other kids their age or just spending time with people instead of looking at the screens. Also, because children are very imaginative and impressionable, they are much more vulnerable to increased aggression. This is specifically if the media they are watching or looking at encourages violence, or if it just is more violent or aggressive, then the kids will pick up on that and start to copy those behaviors. Lastly, technology used for extended amounts of time can lead to vision problems, pain, and other health issues. Some other negative effects include mental health struggles and cyberbullying. It also diminishes social skills because they spend less time interacting with other people. And so then they have a harder time communicating and just working with other people. They also spend less time outdoors and exercising, which can lead to childhood obesity or just obesity in the future and unhealthy habits. And it's really time consuming. So if technology isn't used in moderation, then it becomes excessive, and that's when it's more risky. And there's also a lack of privacy because out on the internet, everything becomes available, and there's just not much privacy when information is stolen or spread all over the internet. So um, those are my references. Thank you for watching.
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Elison, and I'll be sharing my portion of our slideshow, How Technology Affects Child Development. My portion was one that we wanted to discuss on how technology can affect children behaviorally, cognitively, and emotionally, for good or for bad, and for also learning where that all starts, and how I was able to focus and kind of take it back a little bit and kind of take it back to the root of where this all comes from and discussing the brain and the effects of that. Okay, so many people wonder why children are so attracted to technology and why they're so drawn to bright screens and all of that. And so there's a pediatrician who quoted this in an article, and he says, "It's not how long we're using screens that really matters. It's how we're using them and what's happening in our brains in response." And so, with children, the reason why they're so attracted to this is because a lot of the time, they're bored and they need to fill up the time in their day to day life. And they would rather do something that is mindless rather than things that take effort and time. And so they use technology with, gaming, videos, YouTube, um, video games, social media, all these different things that are things that they don't have to put a lot of work and effort into. And um, and because of this, when this happens, children get too involved in these applications, if you will, and they're not able to understand how much that they're doing and the magnitude of how often they're viewing the things that they are, and why it's not necessary for them to do so. And it's really interesting how they almost become obsessed with, their devices or watching videos or playing games because they know that that's going to bring them entertainment and joy that they think that they need at that time. And so I was able to find this book that was written by Jane Healy. It's entitled How Computers Affect Our Children's Minds for Better and Worse. And she talks about the emotional aspect of technology and how emotions that are crucial, like depression, behavior that displays being antisocial and not having a lot of motivation. These all come from the emotional center. But if the brain isn't able to develop fully because of distractions like technology, then these children will never learn how to feel and understand what they're feeling when they're young. And so we'll never know how much they're gathering in their brains, whether they be at school or at church or with their friends or with their family. But we know that it is very important that there's nothing that should come in the way of that. The brain has different parts of different stages once the children are born, from being in infancy through the time that they're adolescents. And none of that can be neglected. So how does this affect their behavior? So there was a study in Canada that talked about how children who are 3 to 5 years old, they studied these children and found that the children who would watch over TV over 2 hours a day are more likely to act out with behavior problems and show signs of ADHD and other issues, rather than those children who watch less than 30 minutes a day. And there are so many different factors that can contribute to screen time as well. It doesn't just have to be TV and other things like that. And there's other symptoms that came from this study. However, there are some benefits to technology. The one that I was able to find that I thought was really amazing is that children that struggle with disabilities like autism spectrum disorder, they have technology to be able to communicate and learn and strengthen their minds. And there are some children with disabilities that are nonverbal, and so they're not able to fully communicate with people. But with technology, they are able to, and making friends and improving skills and socializing with other kids through technology has been proven to help children to be accepted and to learn how to socialize and be a part of something. And then below here are my 4 references. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Monod Kapler. I'm presenting today with Team 7. My portion of the presentation will go over the effects of TV, video games, and phones on children. Screen time should be limited according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's recommended by age group. So infants up to 18 months old should avoid screens altogether unless it's for video chat with family and friends. Toddlers are able to have a limited amount of screen time as long as it's with a parent that can aid in learning and language skills. Preschoolers may also have up to an hour of educational programming as long as it's parentally guided. So, for example, if you're sitting with your preschooler and they're watching an educational program on counting and you're counting with them, it actually aids in what they're learning and helps them guide to what they're understanding. Kids and teenagers should actually have time constraints on their screens. I was shocked to read that they don't want to have any more than 4 hours a day as it can cause obesity. I feel like 4 hours is actually kind of a lot. But that is the recommendations per the American Academy of Pediatrics. For television, there are good and bad effects of television usage in children. Educational programs, as we discussed, can actually really teach toddlers and preschoolers the alphabet and numbers, especially when it's guided with parents. So it can actually have good effects. I know that my toddler really likes, educational programs, and when I'm sitting there with him and I'm discussing, he's watching something about animal sounds, and I say, "What does the cow say?" and he'll say it back, and we do that. It aids in his developmental and his language skills, so it actually can be beneficial. Infants, however, who watch television, it can delay their language skills and their social emotional growth. Children who watch violent programming can actually become aggressive themselves, and then they can actually view the world as a scary place, and so it's harmful for their development, as well as everything they see and watch they are susceptible to, and so children are at risk of being exposed to bad behavior on television, smoking, drinking, stereotypes with gender and racial stereotypes. So that can be very influential on children, which can also have negative side effects. Video games, I couldn't find any good side effects of video games. I'm sure there are some out there, but only in my research for this presentation, I only found negative side effects. So teenagers that play violent video games are also more likely to be violent themselves. Violent video games can cause nightmares, insomnia, and behavioral issues. Children can actually also become confused with morality, because on video games the hero is violent and kills the bad guy. So this can actually create some confusion between what's right and what's wrong, and with reality for children. Video games can depict bad behavior, which is also influential to children. I don't play video games, so I didn't realize this, but apparently video games can show sexual depictions, violent depictions, smoking, drinking, cussing, foul language, and so that can also have a poor influence on our children. In regards to phone use, I actually found some good effects in my research. I was shocked to read that there are no long-term studies, so really we don't really know the effects of phone use yet on our children, which I was shocked by, because you're hearing a lot right now in the news that social media in children is causing, or in preteens and teenagers is causing attention problems, anxiety, and depression and things like that. But in my research, it was saying that phone use essentially has no long-term effects yet. They're just not known. This also was kind of shocking to me, because I have read the book For the Sake of Our Youth. It's a therapist. I think she's a marriage and family therapist who has done research on phone use and limiting phone use in children. Over 50% of children have a smartphone, and it's mostly recommended with modern therapists that it should be limited greatly, or they just shouldn't have a smartphone at all. And so I was kind of shocked to see that, according to the WHO and the American Academy of Pediatrics, that there really just isn't enough studies out there yet for older children. For younger children, however, though, we do know that it can aid in their language and social emotional delays. The good things about cell phone use is that they can create self-sufficient children, because children can set time constraints for themselves on their phone. It actually aids in their use of technology. It can help them in school. They can learn how to use Google and searches and things like that, which actually can be beneficial for them in the long run at school. It also can help to give them independence because they can learn how to use a cell phone in case of an emergency. So then you're more likely to be able to leave them at home alone, things like that. Negative effects are also that they can cause insomnia and obesity. So there are some negative effects, but in my research, what I found was mostly positive.
Hello, my name is Jennifer. I'm going to talk about technology in education. Well, according to Harold, technology is everywhere, in education especially. Public schools in the United States now provide at least one computer for every 5 students. They spend more than $3 billion per year on digital content. Led by the federal government, the country is in the midst of the massive effort to make affordable high-speed internet and free online teaching resources available to even the most rural and remote schools. Some critics of educational technology also point to a recent study by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development used the computers most in the classroom scores the worst of international reading and math tests. Many in the EdTech field see new technologies as powerful tools to help schools meet the needs for ever more diverse students population. The idea is that digital devices, software, and learning platforms offer a once unimaginable array of options for tailoring education of each individual student. Academic strengths and weaknesses, interests and motivations, personal preferences, and optimal pace of learning. Also, the rapid development in technology has made creatively changes in the way we live. Now, since last year, we studied schools by virtual education, online education, as well as the demands of the society, because we need to continue the education for our students and also for our kids and adults, and it has to be by the technology. So, recognizing the impact of new technology on the workplace and everyday life, today teachers' education institutions try to restructure their education programs and classroom facilities in order to minimize teaching and learning technology gap between today and the future. One technology trend that has come under increasing scrutiny involves full-time online schools, particularly cyber charters. About 200,000 students are enrolled in about 200 publicly funded, independently managed online charting across 26 states. One big trend for schools involves trying to make sure that what happens online is connected with what happened during face-to-face interaction with teachers. That could be involved giving teachers a say in selecting the software that students use. For example, making a concerned effort to ensure online programs provided by teachers with data that is useful in making timely instructional decisions. Now that technology in education, it's very important. Also, that because of the time that we are living now, but it has to be used with a lot of information, a lot of education from the teacher who is going to provide the tools for the students and their learning process. Also, the parents are a very important agent here in this education because they have to be with their students, with their children, also if there are kids, right? So the technology save our lives, according to something like that, but it has to be used correctly. And here are some of the references that I use. Thank you.